This is Inside Indiana Business Radio for Monday, November 18th, 2024. I'm Marek Mazurek. A Purdue University professor says the current shortage of nurses across the United States is going to remain a big issue for the next decade. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the number of registered nurses is expected to grow to 3.3 million in 2032, which is an increase of about 177,000 nurses compared to 2022. That's all in conjunction to a projected 193,000 job openings for registered nurses through the same period. Pengyi Shi, an associate professor in the Supply Chain and Operations Management Group at the Daniel School of Business, says there are multiple factors contributing to the shortage.
First, on the demand side, many baby boomers are going to retire and they have increasing medical needs. This need is not gonna disappear, so the demand side is gonna keep on increasing.
She added that the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated the nursing shortage as many nurses chose to quit their jobs due to a high workload and burnout. The ongoing shortage has had a big impact on both patient outcomes and nurse well-being.
On the supply side, the nursing school enrollment has been at a relatively stable rate, so we're not gonna see huge expansion on the amount of nurse supply in a short frame.
She said the desired patient-to-nurse ratio is 1 nurse to 4 or 5 patients, but a higher ratio can lead to fatigue among nurses. She added that while the shortage isn't going to disappear anytime soon, there is room for optimism. She noted that many state governments have recognized the issue and are putting more funding and incentives towards boosting enrollment in nursing schools. The ports of Indiana have received the largest federal grant in its history to build a $16 million rail yard and transload facility at its Mount Vernon port. The over $11 million grant was announced Friday by the U.S. Maritime Association, a division of the Transportation Department. The Port Authority said in a news release that the project on 30 acres along State Road 62 will include 13,000 feet of track dedicated to railcar switching and 7,000 feet of track that will facilitate cargo transfers between truck and rail. The Mount Vernon port now handles 7 million tons of cargo and 40,000 rail cars annually. Its operations support 8,200 jobs and generate $1.6 billion in economic impact per year. The new project will also include 20,000 feet of rail track, 5 new rail truck transload zones, a cargo shipping yard, a truck scale and scale house, truck marshaling areas, facility lighting, security improvements, and more than 5 acres of newly paved roadways. From the #1 source for Indiana business news, this is Inside Indiana Business Radio.
East Central Indiana, your bold future starts here. IBJ Media, Inside Indiana Business, and the IEDC invite you to Engage East Central Indiana, September 17th in Muncie, presented by CareSource, Indiana University, and Old National Bank. Connect with fellow business and community leaders, discover programs aligned to your region's unique needs, and walk away with bold new thinking for East Central Indiana's growth. RSVP now at ibj.com/engage.
In the latest in a series of announced infrastructure deals, the Gary Chicago International Airport is re-upping and expanding its deal with the United Parcel Service for its air cargo operations. The airport first signed an agreement with UPS in May of 2020. That deal was for 5 years with the option to extend for 2 5-year terms. The new deal announced last week extends the agreement for 5 years beyond that, meaning UPS could stay at the Gary Airport through 2040. Since 2020, when UPS first started working with the Gary Chicago Airport, the facility ranks 3rd in Indiana in freight volume. The new deal with UPS comes a month after the airport announced a $24 million project to expand its cargo apron and install a jet fuel service pipeline to service large capacity storage tanks. The airport says phase 1 of that project will take the airport from a capacity of 2 wide-body aircraft to 8. When the entire logistics apron is done, there will be room for 18 wide-body aircraft, according to the airport. The Gary Chicago Airport last week also announced a nearly $10 million agreement with petroleum giant Citgo that will clear the way for a fuel pipeline to service the airport. In other airline news, Spirit Airlines said Monday that it has filed for bankruptcy protection. The company will attempt to reboot as it struggles to recover from the pandemic-caused swoon in travel, stiffer competitions from bigger carriers, and a failed attempt to sell the airline to JetBlue. Spirit is the biggest U.S. budget airline, and it filed a Chapter 11 bankruptcy petition after working out terms with bondholders. The airline has lost more than $2.5 billion since the start of 2020 and faces looming debt payments totaling more than $1 billion in 2025 and 2026. The airline said it expects to continue operating normally during the bankruptcy process. Spirit told customers Monday that they can book flights and use frequent flyer points as they ordinarily would, and it said it will continue to pay employees and vendors. Musician, cheesemaker, filmmaker, and educator, Paramount Schools of Excellence CEO Tommy Reddix is this week's guest on the Business and Beyond podcast, hosted by Gary Dick, presented by PNC, a weekly conversation with high-profile Hoosiers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. Available now from your favorite podcast provider. I'm Marek Mazurek for Inside Indiana Business Radio On Demand.